Hello, good morning. This is Faith and Books, and it is a Saturday morning about 8:45, and I drove to a park that I haven't been to in a while. I came here as a kid. There used to be a lake here, and we'd go swimming in the lake, but then they closed the lake and they put in a pool, which I think we came to a couple of times, but it wasn't as interesting as swimming in a lake. You know, you can go to other pools. So then we didn't come for a while, and then they put in this big water park, which I've never, gone to at all. I've dropped people off at it. Anyway, so I'm here early in the morning, and I can see people walking dogs and jogging and stuff. But I thought I'd do an update this morning, Saturday morning instead of Sunday morning, because my daughter is coming home from college this evening, and we're gonna spend a day tomorrow together. We're going to do a mother-daughter thing, which will be fun. And then she's going back Monday evening. So I was just thinking it might be too busy or whatever. Or if I had a chance, I'd do another video and then upload it later. Anyway, that's my thinking. Not sure how clear it is. But I'm just going to do a quick update. So since the last time I told you about the books I've read, I've completed 3, one of them just this morning. So I read this on the way home. That was part of the Laura Ingalls Wilder read-along, which was February 7th through February 10th. And I didn't participate in that at all, except for reading this very slim book. I read it in a couple of days just while I was cooking dinner and stuff. But because then I had the crisis with my grandson and I got sick, and I just never was able to participate. So hopefully I'll be able to see the recorded video or something at some point. I don't know if that will happen, but it was fun to revisit this. It was really interesting. In the first chapter, introduction, is by Rose Wilder Lane, and she sets it up, what was going on at the time. And then there's Laura's diary of the journey from South Dakota to Mansfield, Missouri, with Almanzo and Rose as a little child, where they finally bought their apple orchard. And then the last part of it is Rose's memories of that time period. So it was really delightful to read, really interesting. I'm glad I reread it. So then the next thing I did, I had one more book hanging over from the Africa Cup. I did not have to read a book about Egypt, but I just saw this one at the library and was interested, so I read it. It was very inspirational. The writing style it wasn't that it was a bad writing style, it just seemed oversimplified in a way. I don't know how to, but the writing itself, like, there was something about it that hit me funny, but then when I would examine each sentence, I would say, well, this is a really well put together sentence. So I don't know what it was about the writing style. I didn't quite click with it. However, in spite of that, I was very inspired by this woman, Mama Maggie, who has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. She didn't win that year, the European Union won, but she was a wealthy Coptic Christian. So Coptic Christians have a complicated relationship with Egypt in that they're a minority, and often they're discriminated against, sometimes quite violently so. But there is a minority of them that have achieved wealth and success. So there's, like, sometimes they're tolerated, sometimes they're not tolerated. She came from a wealthy sector of Coptic Christians, and she didn't give up her wealth, but she greatly simplified her life, and she poured her wealth into serving the children that lived in the garbage slums of Cairo. So it's very interesting how she went about doing it, what inspired her, the steps she took. I kind of found her refreshing because she wasn't political. She can't be political because that would just mean backlash and violent backlash. And they already have, Coptic Christians are already walking on a razor's edge. And this was published in 2015, so I don't know. I'm sadly ignorant about what's going on in Egypt, so I don't know. But so she couldn't be political. Instead, she just love for the poor. What can she do for this child, this poor child right in front of her right now? What can she best do for them? And she started this whole chain of this charity or this nonprofit called Stephen's Children, which serves all these poor communities, not just Coptic Christians but Muslims too, who are just reduced to this destitution. It's just horrible living. And she started these kindergartens or these preschools, and she uses it to teach the parents as well, and the children have hygiene and medical care, and they learn to read and write and count. And so it's very it's great. It really worked well, and it's kind of Montessori based. And then she also started these soccer camps to get kids just for 3 days, even just out of their horrible environs into a place that's wholesome, where they get sleep, they get good meals, they get taken care of, they get medical care, they get good hygiene, and they play soccer, and they get to talk to, all of it's kind of Christian based, so they're also teaching from the Bible and that sort of thing. So she's doing marvelous things. She comes to D.C., or at least she used to, 5 years ago, sometimes, because there are a lot of people who like her organization, what she's doing. And it was so funny to be reading this and see Frank Wolf, my own congressman. He retired in 2015, but he's mentioned in here, so that was really funny because I'd actually met him once. So Mama Maggie by Marty Macari and Ellen Vaughn, and just very inspirational about what one woman is doing, serving thousands and thousands and thousands of poor people in Cairo. So, all right, and then, the book I just finished this morning was the Autobiography of Agatha Christie. So it was really enjoyable. She's so British, and she had a Victorian childhood, so that was really charming to read about. And some parts were just so interesting, like what she was doing during World War I, and then when she was going on these archaeological digs, and her traveling through the Near and Middle East, because she loved that area of the world. She was really good at talking about traveling. And then, of course, World War II. The funny thing is, I didn't find her talking about her books that interesting. My engine just kicked on. Here, let me turn this off. I didn't find that part quite as interesting. And while sometimes she wrote, and I could really relate to what she was writing about, other times I found her opinions a little bit peculiar or dated. But by and large, it was a really enjoyable read. Now, that was a read for me. I read that back in my teens. So even though I never read an Agatha Christie book until I was in my 40s, I think, I had read her autobiography. So I remember my mom got it out of the library, and she had finished reading it. I can still picture the chair I was sitting in when I started reading it. I have a clear memory of that. But, and I thought it was only like 300 some pages. It was 567 pages or something. So it took me a little while to get through it. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I just finished that this morning. So now I'm going to be full into Fabrigency. Well, not quite. I mean, I'm still working my way through Till We Have Faces. How far am I now? I'm on page 145. So I'm just reading a couple of chapters a week. But it's beautiful. I love it. It's so well written. I'm still working on City of God. But for Fabrigency, I'm sorry, I'm just holding this camera, so if I'm shaking it or whatever, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me put it back down like this. It's easier to see. So now I'm going to start on my Kindle. I'm going to read, can you see that? Belinda by Maria Edgeworth. So she was a contemporary, or maybe slightly before Jane Austen, and I have read her books, The Absentee and Castle Rackrent. So this will be my third Maria Edgeworth. I like her. And I'd never heard of her before a couple of years ago. But yeah, I like her writing. And then I'm also reading Little House in the Highlands. And this is also for Regency because, I think last time I said it was her great-great-grandmother, but it was Laura Ingalls Wilder's great-grandmother, was from Scotland, and she lived during the Regency era. And this is a really charming book. I mean, I never knew that the Scots slept in box beds. Had you ever heard that? Yeah, they just the detail, the domestic detail in here is really, really charming. So it's just well written. So I'm reading that and enjoying that as well. Let's see. And then I have been reading. I've decided my memorization faculties is greatly diminished. So I'm not going to try to memorize more than one poem. And I already decided that I was going to revisit Lochinvar, which I memorized in elementary school. But I have been reading Robert Burns' poetry. I'm still trying to think of how to have a Burns night. I'm talking to my family and they're like completely unenthusiastic about it. So I don't know what. It might just be a Burns night for me and not them. Yeah, so I've been reading these just a couple times a week. I pick it up and I'm still doing the shorter poems, but I'm enjoying it. Let's see, the last poem I read, this is awkward because I got to hold this. I forgot to bring the stand with me. I read A Prayer in the Prospect of Death. That was the last one I read. So, I like Robert Burns a lot. He wrote a lot, as you can see, and he was influential. He influenced for Regency. He was slightly before, but Jane Austen definitely writes about him, and other people were influenced by him. And then I am memorizing Lochinvar, and at some point I'm going to, maybe at the very end, I'm going to record myself reciting that, see if I can recite it from memory. So that's it. So still having a wonderful reading period since the beginning of the year. It's just been lovely. Reading has just been lovely. And now I've read, how many books have I read? 13 so far. That's so good for me. Of course, a lot of them are slight. They're not huge tomes. Oh, and I'm still listening to David Copperfield on audio, and I think I'm on chapter 29. I think there's something like, 62, 64 chapters. So I'm really going to focus on finishing that up by the end of February, because March 1st, I want to be able to start listening to Don Quixote. So, all right. So that is it from me. This is just supposed to be a quick thing. I hope that you are doing well, and happy reading. Bye-bye.